still exists, we still have it, look. So, as you can see, we still haven't named this car, but anyways, drag car is back. We've now finished our projects with the Supra and with Jamie, so now we can jump back on this. We had to put this on hold. This car needed a lot of money and a lot of little special billet pieces, and a lot of stuff needed to be developed in the background before we could even continue with this, and we had projects on the go. So it didn't make sense for us to carry on building this. We went into winter, well actually before winter, it was more like, when was it? End of summer?
Yeah, very much.
End of summer I think we stopped, put it aside, parked it off, and then started developing stuff in the background. So there's a lot of stuff that's happened on the motor side, the billet parts and everything that needed to be designed and manufactured. And then there's some new parts that have arrived.
Now, this is epic.
So with all the safety stuff that's been going on and the spotlight that's been shined on it, we were, honest to God, going to use 116 brakes, BMW 116i brakes, because we have the parachute system. My wife was not too impressed with that, so she's made me spend money, which I hate doing, especially on things that don't make the car go faster, they make the car go slower. But anyways, it is what it is. So brakes have arrived. Let me walk you through the brakes. What have we got here? So front brakes and back brakes. Doing it again. So that's standard scrappy two-piece OEM brake discs. That comes on all the cars. I think they're like 340 more about. So yeah, what we've done, we've moved over to a 4-piston caliper. So what this means is that brake fluid, when you put your foot on the brake pad, on the brake pedal, fluid is pushed into this cavity over here, and as you can see, it's got 4 pistons. These move towards each other because it's being filled up by fluid. These are called brake pads. So these would obviously fit inside there. I'm not going to put them in, I'm just giving you guys an idea. So when you put your foot on the brake pedal, pushes the fluid in here, pushes those pistons towards each other, which pushes these pads together, which then clamp your disc. The ones we were going to use is like a single piston. It's just one piston and it literally pushes on itself onto the disc. So the reason for that is because everything in a race car needs to be light as possible. So the brakes are smaller, everything's smaller. Wherever we can cut weight, we cut weight. And given the safety of things that's happening, we've decided to go with a 4-piston so that we have better braking capability. And even though we've gone with a much lighter disc, much lighter disc and a much smaller disc for the front. So I mean the weight difference of these is just, I think at some point Lou will break out the scale finally and just weigh the difference, man, because I'm actually intrigued. I'd like to know the difference between the two. So yeah, this is a 2-piece, a proper 2-piece, not like that. This has got an aluminium hub and or top hat as some people call it, and that is bolted to our rotor. The rotor's got little grooves in it, so basically this just helps when the pad is on here, because in drag racing we don't have a chance to warm up the brakes. The brakes don't get warmed up. They have to work from ice cold, and they don't even get tapped, they get pressed. So basically this can easily glaze the material on this. So glazing means it almost becomes like a mirror finish, because some of the particles in here actually melt, and then it glazes over, and then they're ineffective. They're not abrasive anymore, they're very slippery. It's almost like having 2 pieces of glass rubbing against each other. It's not going to slow you down. We need this to remain abrasive. So that's what these slots are here for. So as the disc is turning, these slots are cutting the glazing off. They're scraping anything that's smooth, it's making it abrasive again. And that's what that does. So that keeps your pads abrasive. That it does wear the disc down, but as it's drag racing, we don't really care about that. We don't spend a lot of time on the brakes, hopefully. So yeah, so today, Tom and Jerry there, Bilbo Baggins, Big T.
I'm not gonna lie, I think the last time we worked on this car, I was Big Neck T.
What, Big Neck T?
Yeah.
Oh, you
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Has the neck recovered? Are we still okay?
Little scar.
Okay, it's not too bad.
I think actually the last time was I had that big patch.
I see you grew a tumour though.
In multiple places.
We've still got brake pedal and everything to do. This is confusing. Oh, wait, it does this. There we go.
I like the other way.
You can like it whichever way you want. This is the way it goes. Glad to see you haven't changed, Bill. Okay, so when your brake pedal is, when you're on the brakes, that will push. There's a lever that's connected from here to this, to these two things here. These are called master cylinders, master brake cylinders. So when you push your pedal, these go in. Okay, we probably shouldn't bug around. So that will go, these will go in, and there's fluid in here. There's a reservoir on top and a little piston in here. So as you push it, the piston compresses the fluid through the brake lines to the calipers, which we explained with the pistons. And basically, we don't have a brake booster anymore. So what a brake booster is, because now you stand on this thing, I mean, you're fighting against the fluid. You can't compress fluid. So it's almost like we have to try and clamp all four wheels with just the power of our leg. You know? So in conventional cars or OEM cars, they have what's called a brake booster, which is basically, it's a big plunger with vacuum behind it, vacuum that it gets from the engine, but we won't go too much into that. And basically that always has like a pulling effect on your brake pedal. So that helps you. So you don't have to put as much effort in your braking because you've got the plunger that's already under vacuum, that's already trying to pull the brake anyways. The reason we've had to go with a dual like this is basically it'll be front brakes and back brakes. And because we're using 4 of the same size calipers and pistons and everything, we need to balance our brakes. So braking is never like a 50-50 thing. It's never 50% of brake force in the front, 50% the back. It's not like that at all. On a normal road car, it can be as much as 80% in the front. And that's obviously depending on where the weight is in the car and how the car is set up. If you look in our instance, we have a small brake disc at the back and a bigger brake disc in the front. But we also have big tires at the back and skinny tires in the front. So we can't put all our braking force to the front of the car. And that's what that is. This is the purpose of this box. This box is to hold those two masters. And then there's an adjustable lever between them. So we can angle which one, when I apply the brakes, which one will come into action first, if that makes any sense, and which one will have more force applied to it to push the fluid to the respective calipers. Thank God everything's powder coated.
Bye-bye pedal.
Second hand.
Off-centered
Yes, it's
bar that G-Man just mentioned.
basically tighten it up and it'll change I think it's like the preload on the brake. So basically when you brake, obviously this one will compress like 30%, that one will compress 50%. So that's things we're going to have to play with without the parachute on. And we're going to have to do a run and then come on the brakes and see which wheel locks up, because this car, it doesn't even have an ABS pump. So if I'm too hard on the brakes, it will lock the wheels up. And if I put too much braking force at the back, it'll just lock up the back wheels. And same, if I put too much brake force on the front, it's just going to lock up the front wheels. And at 170 miles an hour, you don't want to lock up any wheels. So the parachute will be the primary form of braking. That'll scrub off a lot of speed. But these brakes, they need to work from about 130, 140 miles an hour. They still need to work. And heaven forbid there's a problem with the parachute. Then I have to rely on these brakes. So you can see now why my wife wasn't too impressed when she said, what happens if the parachute doesn't open? And I said, well, the little 116 brakes have to stop me at 170 miles an hour, which is something they've never been designed to do. So hence, we've spent the money now. We've got some good brakes. They're lighter, they're better. This is the stuff we're definitely going to be leaning on come race day.
diffs.
Okay,
standard
so I
diff.
was saying we're onto our first major new component. Well, I say new, it is used. Well, the outer casing is used. Anyways, it's called a differential, and what this does, this takes the power coming out of the transmission and it splits it to the two wheels. The basics that we need to know is that the differential basically it creates a bias so that the power can go all the way to one side, and the reason for that is so that and free up the opposite wheel. So I should have completed that sentence. And that's so that you can go around corners, because obviously the wheel on the outside of the bend needs to travel faster than the wheel on the inside of the bend, if that makes any sense. Okay, so it's important that the diff can unlock the outer wheel. So that's what happens when it turns around a corner. But we're on a drag strip. We don't want our diff to unlock. We're not going around any corners or anything like that. We want as much power going equally to the two wheels, and that's when something like this diff comes into play. It's an LSD. LSD stands for limited slip diff. So every diff that comes out has a slip component, so it allows the wheel to slip. This new diff is a limited slip. So the way this works, without going into too much detail and just confusing everybody, power comes in from the transmission in a rotational force. This will then turn, which now, this is our main gear. All our power is distributed between the two shafts. These are the shafts, we'll get to those in a minute. And basically the most important part is this is a clutch type. I think it's called a posi diff. So this is like one of the oldest types of limited slip diffs available. And this actually has like clutch plates on the inside. It's inside there.
Move your finger.
Okay, so I've shown you where those little clutch plates are, and basically rotational force comes in, turns this, these things all lock up, and then our power is distributed to each wheel at the same amount of torque. So yeah, this is just a stock one, and this is more just to show you the difference between a stock one, which we take these right up to like 800 plus horsepower.
Is this a stock open diff or limited?
Stock open diff.
Okay, so this is a stock 140 diff.
Yeah, stock. This is what you would find in all of these cars. And you see they can handle it. They can handle the abuse that goes through them. So as you can see, this unit is a lot more beefy. It's a lot more chunkier. This comes out of the States. It actually comes out of a Ford, believe it or not. So this is what they call like an 8.8 or a 9-inch rear end. This is it. This is what like most drag racers use. It's a proven piece of equipment. So obviously these things don't bolt in. We have to make this thing fit. There's a company out in the States called Seems Legit Garage, and they make these kits for F-Series cars and G-Series cars. Lovely people, they've helped us along the way. We've got pretty much everything we need. What's important and why we use this, it's because we are going to be doing over 1,000 horsepower. And because of the gearbox that's coming, or the transmission that's coming, that transmission, it can store a lot of energy in terms of torque, in way of the torque converter, and it allows us to leave the line with a lot of horsepower. And a lot of horsepower normally snaps things. When it goes from stationary to moving all of a sudden, that's when all the tension is released. That's when parts break. So it's important to upgrade these parts so we don't have failures on the line, and we're able to put the power down effectively and consistently. So next piece that connects all of this to the wheels is the side shafts. So these are the CV joints, and basically what that means, it allows, that one's heavy. It allows the suspension still to work while transferring the power from the diff to the wheel. You see? So the wheel can go up and down. Again, with the drag car, we want our diff and our wheels on the same plane. We don't really want too much movement where the diff drops lower than the wheels, because obviously that will create a weak point.
So that would be the first place it would snap, theoretically.
It would snap here first. Okay? So if we get too much squat, for instance, or wheel hop's another killer. That's basically when the tire bounces as it's going. So it's grabbing traction, and it's a traction issue, and the wheel will start shaking, and that normally snaps these guys, or it snaps these ends over here. So yeah, the way this thing works, it's two pieces, and in the middle here, the CV, constant velocity, that's what it stands for, is a cage, and it's full of balls. And then this is connected almost like a bearing. This would be like the one side of the bearing, and this would be the inside part of the bearing, the shaft over here. And the balls would be on the outside of that, and this is on the outside of the cage, and then that allows it to move and change angle while it can still spin. So quite a cool piece, quite a clever thing. Most modern drag cars, the record breakers, they don't have things like this. They have just straight shafts. This is where that big pumpkin fits, or the diff that fits over here, and it sends the power through the side shafts, which go through these hubs. Now, unfortunately, be it due to communication or whatever, these knuckles or hubs are not right for that kit. Because the CVs are so big, they are actually hitting the shock absorber, or our strange engineering dampeners. So what we need to do, we need to put different hubs in, different knuckles in, which is then just going to open it up a little bit so we've got more space for our CVs.
Wait, but then won't that bring its own set of problems? Because will the wheel not be...
It's going to bring a whole different set of problems now. So this whole assembly is actually going to move out a little bit, which means the wheel is going to move out a little bit, which means new wheels.
I will.
Yeah, but I will.
It's going on the faster car anyway.
Why are you getting rid of it, Chris?
He needs all the help he can get, man.
Yeah, handle it down the family tree, it's only right.
So the truth is these don't fit anymore. Because now the back end is so wide. The offset on these wheels is wrong. So the tires will still fit, but we need to change wheels. So in order to do that, I need to get money. So the only way to get money is to shake down Marky. So he thinks he's getting drag wheels.
Give me more. Load me up, pal.
Keep going.
These are expensive. Load me up. Give me the keys as well. Whoa. There you go.
That's a little down payment.
There you go.
There we go. I'll cover the lug nut.
So Marky's bought it on tick. 60 years.
60 years.
£20 a day.
£20 a day.
So when I started building this, it was over a year ago. When I was ordering the parts, one of the first things I ordered was the wheels, because I didn't have the intention of doing this. It wasn't in the budget, I'll be honest. It wasn't like, hey, let's add a £6,000 diff to the scenario. We didn't have the money back then. We were going racing on a budget, and I was quite happy to just use an M Performance diff because that's what JLo used for long, and no problems. It held. We did 1.48 60 foots on a 245 slick tire, and I figured, well, with the bigger 15-inch, 10-inch wide tires, we'd do something, the 1.3s. How many times we would do it, I don't know. So as time's gone by, the business has done a bit better. We've now been able to afford these upgrades. So I'm very grateful. I mean, that's thanks to everybody who supports our business, and we appreciate that a lot, because now we get to see what a B58 genuine can do when you absolutely wring its neck and give it the best parts to go with it, in a package. See, they've done the anti-roll bar as well. So basically, while we're at the back here, we might as well explain that. So if you see the complex suspension that we were talking about in earlier episodes, which allowed us to manipulate our wheels and all of that. So in drag racing, we don't actually need independent rear suspension. A live axle or straight axle is actually perfect for the job. And then what you could do is you could leverage the body and the weight of the body on the rear axle. So that's in way of like a 3-link or 4-link suspension, which is probably something we'll look at in the future. So in order to stiffen up the back of the suspension, we spoke about the dampeners that we did, that we could abuse them, and so we could control the squat. And this anti-roll bar is another way we can use that. So for circuit guys, like an anti-roll bar is to stop the body roll from like when you're going around the corner. So what it does is, if this wheel goes up, there's like a torsion action that happens to the anti-roll bar, like a twisting motion, which lifts this wheel. So I mean, if you're lifting this wheel and this wheel's trying to drop, but there's an anti-roll bar lifting it up, then it levels out the body as you're going around corners. So sort of the same thing in drag racing. We've got so much torque when the car goes, the motor's turning, there's all this rotating mass going this way, so the car wants to shimmy a little bit, and that's what this anti-roll bar can do. So we can almost preload this anti-roll bar. So instead of like on a circuit guy who would want a balance, we would actually want a bias to like the left wheel or to the right wheel. And basically you'll see when we put the scales down, I put the car on the scales, we'll start playing with the roll bar and you'll actually see there'll be a weight transfer. What we're actually doing is we're lifting one wheel higher. So it's almost as if you're wearing a shoe that doesn't have a sole in it. You can kind of feel your hips are, like, it looks like you're straight, but your hips are a little bit skew. So same kind of thing. And basically that's to counteract the launch. When the car leaves, how the body turns or how the body wants to shimmy, that'll counteract it. That's what we're using the roll bar for. Sweet. So boys have done the rear end. We weren't planning on doing it for this video, but she's finally arrived.
What is this?
So this is our TH400 transmission for the season, for the race car project. And basically what this is a 3-speed. We'll deep dive into this. What's important now, we need to get it into the car and measure the distance for between the transmission and the diff, because we have to make a prop shaft or drive shaft. So that's quite important. That needs to happen immediately. But because it's shown up during this shooting of the video, we thought we'll add it into this video, so we get a nice chunk of updates, so to say. So yeah, very cool that this has arrived. I will talk more about this as we go along, but for now the important part is engine mounts. So first thing the boys need to do, as you can see, they're lifting the engine now, because we need to actually drop in these solid mounts. And basically what an engine mount is exactly what it says it is. This is what holds the engine off the bodywork, or off the subframe should I say. And the stock one, as you can see, it's got some movement. It's also got some dampening effect to it as well. Main job of this, obviously hold the engine up, support the engine, and get rid of all the vibrations that the engine produces, so that it's not transferred to the driver and to the cabin and to the passengers, so that you have a nice smooth driving vehicle. But because it's a drag car, we don't care about things like that. We want to feel everything that's going on. As a driver, you want to be able to feel how the motor's moving. You want to feel those vibrations, because those are your indicators that something's not quite right or something's very right. So yeah, the point of that is we're going to be changing over to solid mounts. So this is by AKG. I believe they did... What parts did they send us? Nothing else. It was just these. Starfish.
Some billet parts? Rear subframe.
Rear?
Like the solid mount.
Oh, did they do the solid mounts and rear subframe? Okay, so cool. All right, action. Sweet. So, as I was saying in the previous shot, the boys needed to do the solid engine mounts so that we could mock this, so that we could install this and then measure up for the prop shaft. So basically what this is our new transmission. So if we have a look at the ZF transmission, which is what we were going to use, that's got 8 gears, and that's a very, it's a very good unit. It's very modern technology that's going on in there. But it does require its own TCU, which brings a lot of complexity to the build. And we're trying to move away from complexity. And I thought by putting the ZF in and using the controller, we would have more control over things. Turns out there is actually a better solution, and this is it here. This is called the TH400. So this has got a rich history in drag racing. This is the gearbox to get for drag racing. Doesn't matter what your engine combination is, this will get it done. There's very little electronics going on here, so it works exactly the same as most automatic transmissions, except it only has three speeds, so first, second, third, and reverse. And the nice thing is there's no complexity to this. We pull a lever and that's the gear that it engages. The lever has some complexity to it, like we can add automatic shifting to the lever. But at the end of the day, it's almost like a clutchless manual gearbox. That's the best way to describe this, with the ability to stall while the engine is developing boost. So what that means, it has a device called a trans brake. So when we're racing, we want to leave with as much power as possible in the engine, and the only way to do that with the ZF gearbox, you have to stand on the foot brake and then go on the accelerator, and then that will overwhelm the torque converter, and eventually you're either going to spin the wheels while you're standing on the brakes, or you're going to have a whole host of other problems when you leave the line. It's not very consistent, and it's not a very good way to launch the car. You need something that you can kind of tune and set, and then it'll pull off like that every single time, which is what this TH400 can do. So a trans brake is something that allows us to engage first gear and reverse gear at the same time, so the gearbox is fighting itself, and with that fighting itself, it gives the engine enough resistance to build boost on the line, and then we can control that boost through the wastegate. We can also manipulate things like traction control, and that's when something like this is called a dump. So this has an internal dump and an external dump. So it basically has another solenoid like this on the inside, which allows us to manipulate the pressure of the gearbox oil that's going between the converter and the gearbox. Basically, as it is torque converter driven, a torque converter, as we know, is a fluid coupler, and if we can vary the pressures going in and out of the torque converter, we can effectively improve the way that this thing transfers power between the engine and the back wheels. So it is quite technical, but in terms of drag racing, this is the simplest solution. This is a repeatable solution. We can set this and we can launch 10 times in a row exactly the same. Whereas with the ZF, we would have to have another computer which simulates a trans brake. It's not really a trans brake. And then there's also the cost of replacements. With the ZF, when a ZF fails, it's quite expensive to fix. With this gearbox, not so much. So there's not much that can really go wrong with it. And when it does fail, spares are plentiful. There's a lot of backup and support from this company, ATI. So it's not an issue. We can get back up and running quite quickly. So yeah, the main problem is now this isn't made for a B58. In fact, if you have a look here, you can even see it says Chevy. So this is for a big Chevy V8. That's where it kind of originates from. So the plan is now we've got this adapter plate, and what this does, this will allow us to mount this to a B58 engine. As far as I know, we are one of the first people to try this or to do this. So this has been in development for quite a few months now. And we've had to trick out things like the diff ratio and the ratios in this thing, and even the torque converter, which does most of the work here. I mean, we've had to spec this kind of in the dark, because when you spec these things, remember I told you it's a fluid coupler, so it needs to know exactly like how much power does your engine produce, what speed does your engine rev to. So if you can't tell them that kind of information, they can't design and build a fluid coupler or a converter correctly, that'll work correctly. Which is another reason why we added the two dumps, so that we could manipulate the pressures going in and out of the torque converter. So yeah, for now, we're going to try to put this adapter on, and then the boys will try to get the gearbox in. Go. Sweet. So
You always try to put
it says action. And
What?
good old T-bone. Sweet. So dummy motor out. The point of the dummy motor was actually that we could build everything. But the problem is it's missing a crank. So we need to put the torque converter on. We've done all the measurements and stuff. So dummy engine out. We can't really use it. Doesn't have the crank in it. Basically, we need to, as I mentioned, we need to get the TH400 in. So the plate is on. The adapter plate is on. We figured out our flywheel clearance. So now we can go ahead and bolt on our gearbox and our converter. Drop it all in, build the back. Please! Okay, put the torque converter on, put the gearbox on, drop it all in, and build the rear mount. I have to talk quickly because someone's going to make a noise. Then we can measure the prop, send those measurements off to the engineer so that they can make a prop for us. And then the fun starts. Turbo kit, where we get to talk about new sponsors as well. We've got some new sponsors that came on board. I'm very excited to show everybody that. And then yeah, not too much to do. Starting to make some good progress now. So yeah, catch us in the next one. I hope you learned something.
In the meanwhile, I'm going to weigh this engine block in, and it's going to the scrapyard.
It's not going to the scrapyard.
Alright, anyway, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, like, share, and subscribe if you did. But in the meanwhile, we're just going to crack on the race car stuff, aren't we?
Yeah, let's get done.
And if you want the link to Chris's OnlyFans, we'll drop it in the description.
Premium quality toe shots.
30k likes, and we'll drop an OnlyFans. See you guys in a bit.
It's OnlyFans / Osprey toes.
.co.uk.
.co.uk. I've got to pay. It's the only way.